Hello there, and welcome back to Daddy Rolled a One. I'm Martin, and this is part 2 of a 4-part series I'm doing on my books that I would want to have if I wanted to continue running RPG campaigns in the future, but only had access to 4 specific books and I could never get another one. So it's sort of my desert island list. This series began in part 1 where I talked about why I made this list in the first place. It's actually due to a tweet that a game manufacturer sent out asking what those 4 books would be. And I presented my list of the 4. You see that list here. And in that video, I specifically go into detail on the first book, which was the Tome of Adventure Design. And then I show a few options if you like the idea of that tome but couldn't get access to it for whatever reason. I also talked a little bit about the criteria that I used to pick the 4 books, but I'm going to put that list up here now, just go over it really quickly. So the first part of it was that I didn't need a set of rules. So assuming that I had the rules down, and what I would be talking about then is playing a game for me of 1981 basic Moldvay D&D. If you're not familiar with that game, you're going to want to watch my video on the history of D&D editions. There's a link here in the upper right-hand corner. But really, I wanted to assume that I know enough by now that I can get by with the knowledge that I've had over the years of playing this game. I've been playing it since 1981, and I'm currently running it for my 13-year-old daughter in a campaign that's been running for a little over 2 years. So the second criteria that I used was that I was looking for toolkits, looking for things to inspire me, not adventures or anything like that. I need inspiration. Because if I had an adventure, say I brought a module or even like a longer adventure path, once I ran that, then that's useless to me because it's done. It's already over. So I need books that are constantly going to be feeding me inspiration and that I'm never going to run out of ideas using them. And then the third one that I didn't really mention, but I think it's kind of obvious by the choices I made, I'm going to stick with a fantasy genre. I love other games. I love other genres. I love post-apocalyptic. I love Weird West. I love World War II. Spy, superheroes. I do love all those, but if I had to pick something that I'm most comfortable running, knowing the rules off the top of my head, it would be fantasy. So that's what I stuck with. So with that out of the way, today we're going to be talking about these 3 volumes. So it's not a cheat because I just said I would just want one of these. It doesn't matter which one. I just need one of these books. So that would count as one of my choices. This is Knock Magazine. And if you see here on the side, it says it is an old school gaming bric-a-brac. And there are 3 volumes that have been published so far. So it says old school gaming. Honestly, the majority of this is stuff that can be used with any system or edition that you're used to, as long as it's in the fantasy genre. And I'll talk about that a little bit as I go into this. But this is published by a group called the Merry Mushmen. They're based in France. So just as a quick funny thing, in Europe, they tend to print the spines of the books here in America, what we would say is backwards or upside down. So in the United States, typically a book like this would be published. This would be flipped around. So it would read like this on the shelf. But this is the top. So it's got this really colorful, fun art on the front and the back. So what's really interesting, though, so this is a collection of articles and topics and charts and maps and adventures and monsters by a bunch of different people. So you see here the list of contributors down the side. These are all the people that contributed to this. And here's the table of contents. But what I love about these is that they make use of every part of this book in such a clever way. So here is a little postcard almost type thing that came in here, and this is the anarchical grimoire of propylonic discharges. Sorry for the mispronunciation there, but basically this is just, it's almost like a funny little thing that you can roll on. It's a random table. It's the alleged work of arch sorcerer Ketoprophus the Unshackled, and basically what you do is you roll first a D12, and then after each one of these numbers, you see another number here. These are D10s, but then there's D8s, D6s, and D4s. So based on what you roll here, you then roll on another table here. So if you roll 1, the immediate removal of, and then you can roll on the D10 table, and it could be locks and bolts, or hinges and rails, or handles and knobs. It's any one of those things. It's essentially spells. And this book has a bunch of spells in it, and once per day you just open the book, you find a new spell, so you're randomly rolling, so it's always going to be different. I mean, I guess there's a chance that you could roll something that you already rolled, but usually it's going to be different. And then it has things in here like if an attempt is made to transcribe the spell, the book disappears afterwards, but not after it bites the owner or the person that tried to transcribe the spell. So it's just fun. You can see the whole list here, but there's different ideas. Like if you roll down here, the possessing of the caster by, and then 1d4, there's like cat-headed things, or heralds of the termite people, or a fey porter knight, or the ghost of Catastrophia. So these are all things like, yes, a DM's going to have to do a little bit of adjudicating here to figure out how these spells work, but it's going to give you an idea, and it's pretty clear from the descriptions what would actually happen. So it's just coming up with a fun little spell thing that's not in the player's handbook, that the players aren't going to expect. So you're giving them something new and something fun that they don't expect. So I just love stuff like this. But then if you look at this book, it's got this cover here. So if you pull this off, this is an adventure right here. So it goes into the detail. This is called the Zeraterazat's Manse. I always stumble over the pronunciation of that, but it's it's the same front and backwards. But this is a whole adventure that was written in here, and then it's just full of all these kind of different tables, and they make use of, like, see, here's the inner spine. This is the reaction table, which is 2d6. Now, old school gamers will be familiar with this. I love reaction tables. I've written about them on my blog, but this is basically figuring out how are the monsters or the NPCs going to react with you. So what's different and kind of fun about this 2d6 table is it doesn't use the standard array that was found in either the Moldvay or Menser Basic. It uses this different one here. So depending on whether it's A, B, or C, which it will tell you in the module, like when you come across something, here's a gecko, C, here's goblins, B, you roll. After you've rolled your 2d6, you look at this roll and see what happens. So if it's A, it's 2 to 3 is suspicious, 4 to 6 is neutral, and 7 to 12 is friendly. Whereas on the other end, if it's a C monster, 2 to 9 would be hostile, 10 to 11 would be suspicious, and then the best you could do would be a 12, which would be neutral. So these are something, again, you can put this in a 5th edition game. There's no reason that you couldn't do this as a DM to figure out how these creatures are going to react rather than just making it up and deciding. And sometimes that's part of the fun. As a DM is to be surprised. I do it all the time in the game, again, that I run for my daughter, but they will encounter some orcs or goblins or whatever it is in a cave, some cultists. And, my immediate reaction is, oh, the orcs are going to attack you. But then sometimes my players will want to talk, and I'll roll on this table here and see, like, well, how do the monsters react to that? And it's just a fun way, again, to kind of take the story in a direction that doesn't seem so forced and pre-planned. But anyway, that's a whole adventure. And then it actually refers to, sorry, it's this one. There's even a table on the spine of the book. So this particular one is talking about the demon's true name. And so you can roll on this thing to figure out what the true name of the demon is. Okay. So what else is in this book? Well, it is a bric-a-brac. So there's tons of different things in here. But there are articles on, like, what I want in an OSR game or old school revival, old school Renaissance game, just to give you a sense of what those types of games really are, or a comparison of old and new D&D, which is kind of fun to read. These are more like kind of, almost philosophy pieces on the game. But what you really get in here is stuff like wandering monsters should have a purpose in wandering around. So 20 different gunpowders. It's a really fun art one. I really like that one. But it's just chock full of these different things. The village's local retired adventurer. And then it gives you an option to figure out, like, is it a he, is it a she, is it a they? And then what are they? Old and almost spent, all the way up to, and what others would be considered to be their prime. Has a reputation as what? And then you're rolling. Their past is what? Their services can be gained how? If taken on, beware that they will do these things. And this is a great tool for a DM to use, and you could even use this right in the middle of a session. There's a new NPC that you introduce in the village, and you didn't have that planned. You could quickly roll this up and it gives you something to work with that's going to be more than just the standard, like, oh, it's a retired fighter or whatever. That's kind of boring. It's giving you like some background here that will help to just make it that much more fun. So there's an article in here on what kid RPGs are missing, which I thought was really interesting. This is by Ben Milton. If anybody who watches YouTube Questing Beast, that's Ben. So he wrote this article here. So here's a fun one in talking about exposing your prep to your players and why you might want to do that. I love this one, My Goblins Are, and then there's this whole article here, and then when you flip over the page, there's a table here for rolling for different attributes for your goblins to make them just different. Every tribe can be different, and then it has something in its pockets, and then you roll on this table here what are in the pockets, right? So what do the monsters want? Here's another table. This is using a reaction table again, that 2d6 table. But then it gives you like, well, why are they acting that way? So food, they want gold, they want treasure, they want territory, they need help, they want to trade. So this is all just really fun stuff in here. And then you get into the back and you get into some ideas on, there's different, sorry, this is another one here. So this is 300 useless magic loot. So just really fun stuff that's magic, but it's not going to overpower your game, and it's just going to add a lot of flavor. And then there's different adventures back here. As you see, there's maps. They just give you a lot of maps that you can figure out, like, how are you going to use these in your game. And there's this is D66 former occupations. I love this. Old school games are really big on rolling D66 tables, which is essentially just rolling 2d6, but instead of adding them together, you just read the numbers separately. So this is really fun because it says you just rolled your character, you want to determine a background, so you can roll D66, and then you roll an extra D6 for the result that you get. On a 1 or 2, you get the positive or the pleasant side. On a 3 to 4, you get the not so pleasant side, and on a 5 to 6, you get both. So as an example, grave robber, if you get that, if you roll 2 1s, you'd get a grave robber. Then you'd roll your D6 again on a 1 or a 2. That means you have a 1 in a 6 chance of resisting energy drain. On a 3 or 4, it means you have a 1 in a 6 chance per night of being haunted, which means you get no benefits of rest. And then if you got a 5 or 6, you'd get both of those things for being a grave robber. But there's just all these fun things in here. You were an itinerant dog shaver, or you were a tax collector, or you were an exotic dancer, or a bone setter, or a zealot of the serpent cult. All these different ideas in here. So, and then you can see you're using all kinds of fun tools in here, like on the spine of this book. So there's different tables. There's monsters in here. So these monsters are statted in an old school style, but it's really not that hard to make the transition to 5th edition. I mean, quite honestly, 5e is easier to translate to an old school game than even 3e, 3.5, or 4e. So, you can just kind of look at the things and see, like, if this creature, it tells you what the hit dice is. It tells you the AC. This has 2 different numbers because old school games used to use what's called descending AC, meaning a 5 was better than a 10. But they give you the ascending in the brackets here. So the 14, that's the AC that you would use. It tells you the hit dice. It tells you the number of attacks. It tells you, okay, this is Thaco. Don't worry about that. Just look at this number if you're a 5e player in the brackets. +1, that's what its attack roll is. Okay. And then its movement, things like that. It's got its alignment there. So you could quickly and easily, change that on the fly to run in a 5e game, and it wouldn't really be that difficult. So that's the first volume of this. So again, I told there are 3 volumes. So they're all very much the same, though. Like, this is another adventure. This is actually a location that they give you, a whole location here called Gloomy Wood, which is really fun. It goes on to the back as well. Here's a chart for a pact with the devil. What does the devil want in exchange for help, and what would the devil do for free? And then you see here on the side, who does the devil actually serve? Okay, so those are just fun little ideas that you get from this. So this has a fun little card inside. These are actually NPCs, or could be used as player characters. So there's little cardboard cutouts, and then they give them little stats and like a little bit of background. So there's Mad Morgan, there's Father Tote. Okay. There's that wizard I can't pronounce, Zeraturazat the Younger. But here's a chart. What's in the gelatinous cube? And there's this whole chart. If you run into one, like what might be some things that you could find in there. There's 100 different ideas, and then cute little drawing there. But that's, you know, again, just all these kinds of fun things that are in here. Like, if failure isn't interesting, skip it. Small tables of gonzo body horror, if you're into that kind of thing. 5 tips for horror in D&D and how to run a game like that. And then, again, maps. If you want to use some of these maps for your game, there's different monsters, again, in here. So that's the second one. And then the third volume, again, you've got your fold-out adventure off of the spine here. That this is another location area. And then you've got, you know, just, again, more and more of these different ideas. And this one has, you know, like they all have these, but like some different classes. So you've got one of the ones I just saw was the Laser Mage. It's just kind of fun, right? It's just adding, there's a rat catcher class. There's a Lost Droid class. So again, these are statted for old school, but you could make the changes. It's really not difficult. There's a Bugbear Witch. All these different ideas in here that you can put into a game. So that's why I would want these books with me. Again, just one is going to give me plenty of ideas that I could use. However, if knock is not your style, or you can't find it, here's some other ideas that you could take. This is Black Pudding, which is a series of zines that's come out. They have put out a compendium called Black Pudding Heavy Helping, and you can get this on Drive-Thru-RPG and a print-on-demand version as well as a PDF. And this is more ideas. These ones are a little bit more consistent because they're all kind of by the same person, but the idea is the same. It's just giving you tons and tons of different ideas of things that you could use in a game. There's also Planar Compass, which is, again, a zine. And you can get these on Drive-Thru-RPG. This one is a little bit more in the style of, from the name, obviously, planar hopping and including different types of planes in your role-playing games. But it really is super creative. The art is really nice, and it just gives you different ideas of, you know, again, of inspiration. And that's what these are all about. All of these are toolkits for inspiration. So that's going to wrap up today's video on Knock Magazine, item number 2 in my list of 4 desert island books that I would want to run future campaigns. So if you do enjoy this video, please like, and also if you could subscribe. I did notice the last time I was looking at stats that about 82% of the people who are watching my videos have not subscribed yet, which I understand, but if you've gotten this far, I would really appreciate a subscription so that I can help continue growing my channel. And also, if you could share this video on social media, that is the quickest and fastest way for me to grow the channel. And then lastly, and you know, maybe even most importantly, at least for me, is if you could please comment. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. And for this series, I would love to hear what your 4 books would be. What would you want to have with you, and then why? And also let me know if you've heard of Knock Magazine and never used it before. All right, so that's it for now, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you.